Okay, pro gamers, my Nintendo myth and urban legend Iceberg has done really well for the channel, and so you'll already know I'm going to be doing a deep dive into PlayStation now with this PlayStation Iceberg. This one's rather more creepy and eerie rather than urban legends and myths, but regardless, I have to admit something that might trigger a few people. I am a PlayStation fan, I'm sorry. I've been able to enjoy the PS2, which was my first console, as well as the PS3, PS4, and in the future, the PS5. Yeah, I probably consider myself a bit of a PlayStation veteran, and today I'm going to go over some of the most interesting, some of the zestiest, and some of the best creepy and weird and random things about the PlayStation, especially the PlayStation 1. Now, while I'd say I'm a fan of the console itself, I'm by no means an expert in its history, so if I get anything wrong, please be respectful about it in the comments. Anyway, this is the PlayStation kind of weird / creepy Iceberg explained. Up first, we have the Sony Nintendo deal, which a lot of you guys might be aware of. In the early 1990s, Nintendo partnered with Sony to develop a new CD-ROM console and attachment for the Super Nintendo system, resulting in a prototype the fans would call the Nintendo PlayStation. However, Sony's deal with Nintendo kind of fell through, and this led to the birth of Sony creating the PlayStation. There were a few more kind of steps in that we'll get to further down the iceberg. These two Japanese companies have kind of been rivals ever since, and while Xbox and PlayStation these days have more of a bitter rivalry, back in the day it was definitely Nintendo and PlayStation. Top of the iceberg though, let's move on. Polygon Man. So Polygon Man was the original idea for a mascot for PlayStation. It appeared in printing ads for the first PlayStation console. However, after a showing at E3 1995, the concept was rejected by PlayStation creator Ken Kutaragi. Apologies if I mispronounced the name. Because I mean, yeah, what even is this thing? Like, I have to think Mario is the mascot of Nintendo, and this would be PlayStation's response? I mean, what kind of sleep paralysis demon was this based off? Like, this thing is just plain freaky. Good thing it didn't get made. Buttons meaning. Okay, so as the title of this entry suggests, all of the buttons on the PlayStation controllers have a specific meaning. According to Teiyu Goto, again, apologies if I pronounced that wrong, he said that instead of choosing random letters like other game companies, he wanted PlayStation buttons to be symbolic. So the green triangle means viewpoint, with the green meant to be representing direction. The square represents a piece of paper or documents, and the red circle and the blue X represent yes or no. Simple stuff, but it has to make sense over saying like Y or B. Like, what does Y or B even mean? You know, or A, it doesn't make any sense. So if anything, PlayStation's actually makes a bit more sense. The PlayStation Mouse was an input device for the PlayStation 1 that can be used as an alternative to the controller. It allows players to use a mouse as a method of control in compatible games. The mouse was released alongside the launch date of the PlayStation, and there isn't really too much else to say about it other than the fact that it's just kind of weird to have this have happened. Like, I couldn't imagine the PS5 being launched with its own mouse. As restricting as a controller might be compared to a mouse, it's also part of the console's identity. $299. This was the price of the PlayStation 1 when it first came out. Now, thanks to these nice YouTube comments, I can tell that Sega probably didn't like this, because the Sega Saturn that was meant to come out around the same time was priced at $399, and a lot of people here say that it was potentially due to this that the Sega Saturn kind of failed and Sega would eventually become no more. This might have been a nail in the coffin for Sega, as we all know how that turned out. But it is also interesting to see how these console kind of brand wars haven't just been going on for the past like decade or so. It hasn't just been Xbox and PlayStation, it's actually been way before that. The X button pronunciation, I'm surprised to see this one quite so low, but it's likely to do with the fact that it's so uncommonly kind of spoken right. The X button isn't the X button technically, even though that's what we all call it. It's meant to be called the cross button, and this is what PlayStation intended, but no one really calls it cross, we all just call it X. You know, there's not really too much else to say about that. You haven't clicked on this video to see me rant about the X button. Anyway, yeah, so let's keep on moving. The creepy ads. Yeah, I don't know if I call these as creepy as much as I would call them maybe eerie to an extent, but these were released a little while back and were just about the power that video games kind of had. I looked over two of them, and this one's just a weird looking Scottish girl who's apparently had a bunch of makeup effects done to make her look like that. And the other one I actually really like. I think the filmmaking here is actually very strong, and it leaves a punchy image in my head. I mean, they're offbeat for sure, but they're memorable to say the least, and I think that's what Sony was going for. A bit weird, but nothing too extreme. Ken Kutaragi hated Crash Bandicoot. I personally want to go out on the record and say that I think that Crash Bandicoot was my very first video game that I ever played. Either that or LEGO Star Wars the original trilogy, I can't remember the chronology. Either way, former CEO of Sony Ken Kutaragi thought that Crash would be a bad mascot for PlayStation. because he thought that it would make PlayStation appear too childish. From my research, I don't actually think that Ken wanted any mascot for PlayStation, but like, come on Ken, you have to go for Crash over Polygon Man, right? Like that has to be better. I think kind of Crash would have been good for PlayStation, but it was never really meant to be because Ken, you know, Mr. Kutaragi just did not like Crash Bandicoot, even though he is now a very big kind of PlayStation staple. Willy the Wombat. Okay, so speaking of Crash, his original idea is much different to what we would grow to know and love. This was the original design for Crash, and as first drafts go, I don't actually think it's half bad, you know. I personally don't think Willy the Wombat is a good name for him. Crash Bandicoot is much better in my opinion, and Naughty Dog agreed with this. The original pitch for the name was Universal's, who came up with Willy as well as some other similar names, but Naughty Dog didn't like it. And those names almost forced Naughty Dog to leave. They wanted to have full control over the name of the character. They eventually went with Crash due to the fact that he kind of crashed through boxes, and they went for Bandicoot over the fact that Warner had the Tasmanian Devil and Sega had a hedgehog, and they wanted their own kind of animal for the company, so they went for a Bandicoot, and that's how kind of Crash Bandicoot came to be. Petscop. Okay, this one specifically I'm only summarizing, and I need to get that kind of out of the way now because a fully explained video takes about an hour and 20 minutes from what I've gathered. Also, what I've gathered from watching a summarized video is that it's a fictional PlayStation 1 game that can only be watched on the Petscop channel. It doesn't actually exist, it's not actually a video game. Instead, it's just a really weird and creepy video series on YouTube. The series started on March 12th, 2017, and the final video was uploaded on November 28th, 2019. It centers around Paul, who is meant to be doing a Let's Play of sorts, but the series is considered to be one of the most interesting and creepy stories that YouTube has to offer. And while I can't really go into it in this video because I don't want to make this video 3 hours long, I'm going to leave a link in the description to the channel, and if you like stuff like Salad Fingers and Don't Hug Me I'm Scared, I think you will like this. It's weird, it's offbeat, and it kind of is just a very intriguing concept. FIFA Football 2005. My friends, it is with heavy hearts that I must admit that on October 8th, 2004, the PlayStation 1 passed away peacefully in its sleep as FIFA Football 2005 was released. This would be the last game released on the original PlayStation. I never played FIFA 2005. But even though I'm a begrudging FIFA fan, even I can admit that a FIFA game isn't really the high that you would like to go out on. But either way, it happened. Sega also rejected Sony. So a lot of people know about Sony and Nintendo almost working together on a console, which would have been crazy to be honest, that would have been mental. But a few less people know that Sony and Sega almost worked together on a console by themselves. After Sony and Nintendo broke up, the higher-ups at Sony went to Sega and proposed working together against a common enemy. They didn't like Nintendo anymore and wanted a bit of revenge. Their partnership actually made a bit of sense, but Sega thought that Sony's ideas wouldn't work and ended up making their next console Solo. In retrospect, this was a poor move, but no one could have predicted the global success that the PlayStation would have at the time, so it's kind of understandable. Regardless, Sony went ahead and made the PlayStation, and it was a huge smash hit. Sony, along with all consoles, were banned in China from the year 2000. I don't know, I kind of feel bad for the Chinese people because for 13 years, not a single Chinese person could understand the glory of an Xbox Call of Duty public lobby, or getting sent death threats because someone thought you were too sweaty. Either way, the ban was lifted in time for the next gen consoles, but consoles were outlawed once in China, which is something kind of weird to think. LSD Simulator. So while the PS1 had a large amount of rare PlayStation video games that are bizarre, some of the most popular ones like Pepsi Man for example, others are unknown, such as LSD Dream Simulator, which if you can't tell is simulating just a really bad drug trip. I take back what I said about Polygon Man, this thing is the thing of nightmares. It came out in 1998 and fell into obscurity before resurging in popularity in recent years. I mean, it's terrifying, but I can actually kind of see why people are so interested in it. It's just so abstract, so out there, and so creepy. It's all that, so I can kind of understand why people are so interested in it. Thrill Kill. Thrill Kill is an unreleased fighting game for the PlayStation 1. The big story about Thrill Kill is that it was overshadowed by controversy surrounding the game's depiction of violence and sexual content, with BDSM and fetishistic costumes and acts being shown, as well as limb dismemberment and violent special moves with suggestive names such as Bitch Slap, Swallow This, and Going Down. Oh god. Thrill Kill was actually given an adults only age rating, which was and still is very rare. The rating was also given to GTA San Andreas and Hatred. Due to this, Thrill Kill wasn't released. However, the nearly finished model of the game was bootlegged and uploaded online. Next up, we have abstract Japanese games. So we spoke a bit before about LSD Simulator and how it can kind of come under this category of just a really weird abstract Japanese game. But the PS1 had a large amount of rare PlayStation games that are just bizarre. Some are very popular like Pepsi Man, but others, for example, are more obscure and, well, just less well known. An example of this, and I swear this is its actual name, is Screaming Mad George's Paranoia Escape. Like, how much LSD Simulator do you have to do to come up with a game like this? It's, you know, these are just kind of just weird, abstract, really just crazy, off-the-wall games, and, you know, they can kind of be found, a lot of them can be found online. And so yeah, if you're interested, just look them up. And the one I'm going to end on today is Kowai Shashin. Again, apologies if I pronounced that wrong, I do not speak any Japanese. So what's the deal with Kowai Shashin? Well, apparently, according to a legend, the game is actually haunted, and this might be one of the only video games that have ever been claimed to be haunted. The tale goes that all of the game's creators died to a curse on the game. This is because one of the creators died under strange circumstances, not all of them did die. That's just what the tale says. By the time the game was released, most of the developers actually left the project, and when it was released, they say the curse was passed to those who bought the game. Does this mean that the game is cursed? Well, no. The game is probably, if not definitely not cursed. It's a creepypasta, but some of the stories that are told of it are quite creepy, to say the least, as with all creepypastas. I mean, you know, creepy is in the name. But regardless, it is just a very interesting and kind of freaky story. Okay, so that's it from me. I want to sincerely thank everyone who's made it this far in the video. We just hit 1,500 subscribers yesterday, and so hopefully we'll hit 2,000 by the end of next month maybe. Regardless, if you like this video, please do subscribe because we'd love to have you as part of the community. Join the Discord if you haven't already, and follow me on Twitter @FoxAkimbo. Please send Iceberg charts that you want me to cover to foxakimbo@gmail.com. And lastly, I want to thank everyone for voting on the poll. You guys made this happen. And perhaps some other time we will cover some of the other entries. Lastly, please let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see me do next, as I'm only 30 videos in and I'm already out of ideas. Thank you for watching.